Fables to facts, exploring truth behind beliefs.
Recording in progress. Hi, Edward.
Hi, Arti.
Let's jump into our next episode, the first plagiarism in ancient history. From the papyrus to the parchment. Amenemope and the Proverbs, the ancient Egyptian text, and the plagiarism in the Hebrew Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. Let us introduce what is this text by Amenemope, who he was, what he wrote, what was that about, and what is the Proverbs text about that we want to discuss, which I assume was either plagiarism or maybe it was the inspiration from the ancient Egyptian text.
That's right. So you got these two texts written centuries apart. This is what we're going to explore in today's episode. But there's echoing similar themes throughout about, how to live well, how to act justly, how to walk humbly. And they only differ to fit into the narrative of each culture. So today, first, let's discuss roughly when the Instruction of Amenemope was written. So its probable creation was in the late New Kingdom Egypt, 1300 to 1075 BCE. And it was shortly after the reign of Akhenaten. And the probable date of the creation of the Book of Proverbs was 7th to 6th century BCE. So there's at least 300 to 500 years difference, although it is attributed to King Solomon in the 10th century.
Who was Amenemope and what he wrote about? Amenemope, most probably he was the ancient Egyptian scholar. And most probably he was not even theologist. He might be connected to the priesthood, might be not. We never know, but he might be the scholar, he might be the teacher of the younger Egyptian generation. So this text is attributed to this scholar by the name Amenemope, who wrote some moral instructions to either his son or his pupil, or it was both. Probably his son might have been his pupil, doesn't matter. So it was like a moral code for the next Egyptian generation. And what is the Book of Proverbs about?
It was written over centuries, most likely, and although it is attributed to King Solomon, it came a few hundreds after him. It was at least finished by then. And it's sometimes called the 30 sayings of the wise, and it gives practical advice on ethics, justice, and moral conduct. So it was most likely written by a mixture of various scribes, Jewish scribes.
But here is the word, the wise. So the wise is attributed to King Solomon. Is that right?
That is right. With King Solomon's wisdom, yes.
Okay, let's just compare the text, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we know that the instructions of Amenemope were written prior to the Hebrew text.
Yes.
We can all agree on that.
There's papyrus in the British Museum, fragments of this text, and like a lot of things end up in the British Museum. And these do date to at least the 11th century BCE, but most likely to the 13th century. So we're talking definitely before the Book of Proverbs. So what we need to explore is how similar are these texts?
Okay, I need to mention that we took the closest to the original translation. By the way, the languages. So the Amenemope instructions were written in late Egyptian hieratic language or dialect. And the Proverbs were written in the biblical Hebrew. Then let's just compare the text.
Let's start on Amenemope, chapter 1, its instruction. So, late Egyptian. It states, the literal English translation, give your ear and hear what is said. Give your heart to understand them. So, Arti, what does Proverbs say?
Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge.
So we've got the verbs give, incline, ear, such similarities. It means the same thing, doesn't it? It's almost word for
Ear and
word.
hear what
Yeah.
I said. The only difference might be who is saying that and
Yes.
who is listening.
I think just an
Just
important point
if
on the
you have
Hebrew Bible, Proverbs, is we've got the words of the wise is a Jewish idiom. It is regularly used in that period in the Judaism religion. So they've it seems like they've borrowed that text and just altered it slightly to fit their narrative, sort of thing.
move on to the next one, and then we analyze all in bulk, I suppose.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's have a look at chapter 9 of the instruction of Amenemope. Better is poverty in the hand of God than riches in the storehouse. Better is bread with a happy heart than wealth with vexation.
Now the Hebrew part. Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Here I would like to discuss a bit. Just as I said in the very beginning, Amenemope was a scholar. He was not theologist. So the text was secular.
Yes.
But Tanakh is theological text.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there should be the Lord, the Great, the Almighty mentioned as the focal point of all origins of all wise men.
Yes.
Because the wise men take the inspiration or even the commands from the Almighty One, from the God.
Yeah.
That's why I think they just swept the narrative from the secular one, which is less intimidating for the Hebrews.
It's for a
But the
different
Lord,
audience, yes? Okay, next one. Do not move the boundary stone on the boundaries of the fields, and do not encroach on the boundary of the widow.
and the Hebrew version, do not move the ancient boundary stone that your fathers set.
So the only change is the fathers set instead of the widow. So it's a patriarchal, isn't it? Judaism was a very patriarchal society.
While ancient Egypt was kind of patriarchy, but it still had queens and different approach to women. And even Egypt has plenty of women rulers that were considered as prominent as the male ones. There were just fewer of them.
Yeah.
Two of them that we just know, everybody probably knows who heard something about ancient Egypt. It's Cleopatra and Nefertiti.
Yeah. When I visited Valley of the Kings, you got Hatshepsut as well, who's stepmother to Tutmosis III, and she ruled instead of him until, as the actual pharaoh. Yeah. So
that happened also in Europe in monarchies, but she was still the prominent woman. The difference is the approach, whether women were considered as part not only of the equal society norms and whether they had the same rights and the same status. In Egypt, most of the ages that I have studied, I have the feeling that they do.
Yeah.
If there were queens. But in Hebrew, there were some very important women, but they were secondary. Even now, if you go to the whipping wall,
Yeah.
there is the male side and female side.
Yeah.
And only recently, women were even permitted to approach the wall. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. You even have it very Orthodox Jews on aeroplanes, that they'll refuse to sit next to a lady and demand to be sat next to a man. So even today, as you stated, there is that divide sort of thing.
That's why we see widow is not that authoritative. So, whom to replace the widow with? Fathers.
Yeah. Okay, the next one, chapter 2. Guard yourself from robbing the poor, from being violent to the weak.
And the Hebrew version, do not rob the poor because he is poor, nor crush the afflicted in the gate.
So the afflicted, weak, violence, towards them, do not crush, and guard yourself from robbing the poor. Do not rob the poor. So it's the same. It's just being slightly altered.
Good. I have nothing to add here. It's just kind of obvious.
Yeah.
The next one.
So chapter 10, do not befriend the heated man, nor approach him to converse.
And the Hebrew version, do not befriend a man given to anger, and do not go with a wrathful man.
Yeah.
Absolutely similar. It just might be the difference in the linguistics here.
That's it.
Like,
it's just, it's just different adjectives and yeah, very similar. Okay, the next one. The God loves him who cares for the poor more than him who respects the wealthy.
and the Hebrew version, the Lord pleads their cause and deprives of life those who deprive them. The interesting thing here is, while the Egyptian text was secular, it still mentions the God.
Yes. And it's a bit strange
I
where
would,
in this translation it's only one God. It's like the God. And
yeah,
instead of the gods, which in 13th century BCE, Egypt would, apart from Akhenaten, would be gods. Yeah.
would be gods. Maybe the scholar, mentioned or was thinking about some particular god, the supervisor, I don't know, of the scholars, or like their family or
Yes.
their branch of professions or
Well,
something like that.
well, the Romans were
Or
renowned for that, weren't they? Each patrician family had their own like god, their main god sort of thing, who they worship. They worship many. So definitely could be the case with this as well.
or maybe he was, I will call him the descendant of the monotheistic rules
Yeah.
of Akhenaten.
The dates fit with that. Yet within 50 years of each other. So it's definitely possible. But this was the thinkings, the teachings of the Artanism.
Think we can move on to
Yeah.
finish all the list.
Okay, so
And the next one is about gluttony.
okay, greed and gluttony. So the text reads, do not set your heart upon wealth. There is no ignoring fate and destiny.
And the Hebrew one, do not toil to acquire wealth. Be wise enough to desist. A bit different words, quite similar meaning.
Yes, it has the same meaning, but very different words. So, yeah.
Then let's compare another one.
So the Egyptian text reads, "Do not crave bread before a ruler, and do not desire his food."
And the Hebrew one. When you sit to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you. Do not desire his delicacies.
Yeah. So
The expanded version
that's
of
it.
the Egyptian.
We know kings and nobility that they always ate well throughout history, didn't they? Obviously, that this is where the wealth was, and they would have had all these delicacies, and so it's just saying, don't eye, it's not yours. Don't
Mhm.
eye your rulers, your king's food. Yeah, do not desire it. Okay, next one is beware of robbing a silent man. It is an abomination to God to mistreat the humble.
Again, God
Yeah,
and the Hebrew Bible mentions what? Do not rob the poor, for the Lord will plead their cause. Interesting how it is spoken about the silent man.
yes.
So, who is the silent man? Just
I reckon it would
what
be,
is it about?
wouldn't it be like, yeah, almost like commoners, poor people, those without a voice, which then comes into the translation of the Proverbs, does mention poor. So yeah, the silent man, a man without a voice. Okay,
Okay.
the next one. They make themselves wings like geese and fly to heaven. So this is about wealth. So, so the riches from the text makes them like wings like geese and fly to heaven.
And the Hebrew text explains a bit more in details. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle towards heaven. Both speak about the ephemeral nature of wealth,
Hmm.
where you have something material, then suddenly it just flies away.
That's easy come, easy go, gone sort of thing. Yeah.
The text referred to the heaven, the heavenly realms, which is the house of God or gods. And the last one in our list of comparison is,
The words of the wise are a mooring post for the soul. They are given by God to guide.
and the Hebrew one, for it will be pleasant if you keep them within you. They will all be ready on your lips.
Yeah, that's wise. So what do you think about this one, Arti?
We still have the reference to God in the Egyptian text, while it is more scholarly, secular. We read parts of two texts, Amenemope instructions and the Proverbs from Tanakh. The similarities are quite obvious, but what does it say about? The facts are the Proverbs were written later than Amenemope,
Yeah,
but not the time difference, the time span between the two is not that big.
it's not. We're talking a few hundred years.
Few hundred years in ancient times. The oral tradition and the written tradition was already established well enough. Still, some variations in the languages spoken in ancient Egypt, spoken by Hebrews, will make the translation different.
Yes.
It cannot be literal, number one. Number two, the inspiration was obvious. Plagiarism or not, but from my point of view, why not to take something good from another whether it's religion, science, scientific discipline, philosophical work, and bring it to your nation.
Exactly. If there's proof of the original Egyptian texts, you know, did what it was supposed to, you know, instilled morality, ethics into people, yeah, why not directly borrow it and to have that in your new society sort of thing?
And even now, what we see in nowadays, I just want to mention, for example, Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli. Yeah, his works inspired hundreds of others disciplines on how to rule the country, how to establish propaganda, how to overthrow someone else. So you don't need to think of anything new. If the book was already written, if you have the full list of instructions, you just take it.
If it
And
works, then you know, there's no need to change it. Not that much, you know, no.
how do you think whether Amenemope's instruction worked in Egypt?
I think so. You got to think it's not. It was a both, you know, Jerusalem, you know, the Israelites and Egypt around these times. There's no real police or anything. A lot it was like one of the phrases, and you hear it a lot in the Bible, in the New Testament and Old, like the fear of God, the wrath of God. You know, you've got to do this or you'll go to hell. And although it's, you know, it wasn't so much as in Amenemope's instruction. It was all about morality still. It's all about to create a better world, a better society, make people better.
One more evidence that it indeed worked is that we still have these texts written and we can read them now after thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
It means they were meaningful and they did their job.
And they're even meaningful now. A lot of it is, you know, it's our own parents, you know, schools, the teachers, you know, don't steal, you know, don't torment the poor and you know the afflicted, the disabled and stuff. But we still have those same morals to this day. They're still relevant.
But getting back to our investigation and research, was it plagiarism or it was the borrowing, reinventing the more ancient or older morals by Hebrews?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because without doubt it's a copy, right? So the in the instruction, the Egyptian text, we've got the 30, it was the 30 chapters, right? In the Hebrew, it's 30 sayings, right? So there's without doubt it came from that. But would you class it as plagiarism? Or was it even I wonder if the Jews at the time even acknowledged that it came from ancient Egypt? Was there an acknowledgement of it?
Well, I can recall, I think it was from the Christian Bible. There was in at least one of the translations, in one of the versions, there was even some mentioning of the author of the wise quotes.
Oh,
And they still mention the Egyptian scholars, for example, or the authors of some sayings. So
yes.
I would say they do not deny that it was said by some human being.
Yes, it's a book in America. I can't remember what branch of Christianity, and they do reference it came from this. You know, they're very transparent about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've exposed, there's very little denying it. You know, they're 100% it came from the original Egyptian text, whether that was orally or, you know, they actually had a copy of it.
For me, it is also interesting, like the saying of the wise. in Hebrew attributed to King Solomon, but it was also common in ancient times. Whether, just imagine, it's not like nowadays there are hundreds of podcasts and everybody's saying some wise thing, but you still can Google and check, oh, that's that guy. But to give some more potential to the words authority,
Yes.
it is better to name someone mainstream.
See, I know it's slightly off topic, but you got to think the three wise men in the biblical story of Jesus. You know, it's they're prominent people. Be called a wise man back then was, you know, men of wisdom, men of knowledge.
But also, if you want to tell, let's say, the crowd or hundreds or thousands of people why you should live by these rules.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just the guy, maybe I'm even the priest, maybe I have some authority, but I give the set of rules. How many people would listen to me if I just say, oh, I just wrote the set of rules, we need to follow them, and we live in the better society? It's better to attribute, look, I found the scripture written by King Solomon. Yeah. Whoa, King Solomon. Yeah, we listen to him. If he told that, he established the huge country, the civilization, the society. We should follow him. Yeah, good. Definitely. That's the attribution.
Oh, it's just like, you know, the Bible, the first English translation in the UK. It's like, you know, today it's still called the King James Bible. Obviously, he didn't translate it himself, you know, but he just happened to be on the throne when it was. You know.
So, given the authority to the words, you need to attribute them to someone with the authority.
Yeah.
And just I was just imagining, like, okay, if there was a wise Hebrew scholar, priest, who just saw this set of rules or instructions by Amenemope and just quoted them. There was some Egyptian guy a couple hundred years ago who said these rules. Oh, I don't think I would follow that. Like, oh, it's interesting, it's wise. Would it work for me? Would I appreciate that? And especially remembering the history of persecution of Jews in Egypt. Would I listen to any Egyptian?
But what do we know about the ancient Egyptian text, the instruction? You know, like, as you mentioned, Arta, it was training, you know, for his son, maybe, you know, training government officials sort of thing, given those immoral conduct. But then, or was it something different? Is that what just came about later? Was this why at the time, as we just proven, as we was reading, there's no words as gods, it's always God. And that's
God.
And there's only one time in ancient Egypt where there's really only spoken about as one god, the Arti.
Akhenaten.
Yeah.
Aten by Akhenaten.
Yeah.
In addition to what you said about Amenemope's text, in his text, he was referring to Ma'at.
Yes.
Which is the Egyptian term for cosmic order.
Mm-hmm.
Not to the gods, not to the goddish order, but to the cosmic order. Yeah. So how things intervene, interconnect, interchange, how everything is kept in order within the whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
So this was not just a simple scholar, just like, oh, you need to study well, son. Mm-hmm. No, it was something universal.
Yeah.
And I would assume that most probably the scholars were connected to the priesthood in ancient Egypt. Everything was connected to religion.
Yes, there's lots
one
of
way or
roots,
another.
we know that. Yeah.
It was not that secular society. Then with the multiple pantheons of gods in Egypt, with the multiple avatars of gods, I would assume at least some of them could be mentioned within the text, but they were not.
Yeah.
Instead, there was the god, whomever that was, and Maat.
Yeah.
The universal order was mentioned.
Yeah.
So what was the exact word for the god in Amenemope instructions? It was Neter, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to
So
pronounce it
elaborate
correctly.
on that, Arti. What's what's that?
It is general Egyptian word for the divine power, for deity, for kind of random god. And the text itself was not just the instruction to follow some human order, but instead follow the divine order. And the God itself, the general word for God, means that if a person follows this divine being, it follows the universal
Order,
spiritual, and the higher power order, not just the materialistic
Well, I
word.
think this brings a lot more sense into the other instructions that don't mention a god, but you know, about the morality and being a better person, how to treat people. It's now with the cosmic order and the wisdom, it's starting to make sense. The rest of the instruction makes sense.
Still, it is a very important question. Why none of the well-known until now Egyptian gods were mentioned there?
Yeah.
None of Ra, none of Osiris.
See, I would have thought Ra was mentioned because he's always known as the main god, wasn't he, for most of ancient Egypt? You know, you got the Eye of Ra. You had it on always in the tombs of pharaohs. So yeah, to have this, that's very interesting.
Or not even the thought or thought, yeah? The god of wisdom.
Yeah.
None of them was mentioned.
Ah. And
Again,
then,
another speculation.
so why do you think then? So you got this wisdom, the cosmic, and then let's talk about at the time, so there's many gods in ancient Egypt, and there were in early Judaism, yes?
Yes, yes.
But by the time of Solomon, there was only one. So
I see clear parallels here. Let's start from Akhenaten. He was the one to bring the idea of, yeah, I can call it the universal God, the one and only,
yeah, the Arti,
the Almighty One, the one above all others.
Mhm.
And it was not denial of other gods. So it was not pure monotheism in
Yes.
ancient Egypt. It was henotheism.
And that's
So
so there's several gods sort of thing, isn't there? But then there's a supreme deity while acknowledging other gods do exist, yeah?
and it's like people choose one God by making the God choosing them. Here we result in what? In the chosen nation, in the chosen people.
Yeah.
And I'm now talking about ancient Egypt. But you wouldn't think
I
that
thought you was talking about Judaism.
Yes.
The chosen people, the promised land, and
which is quite similar.
Yeah.
Akhenaten made the only Aten, the god of Egypt.
Yeah. And
Aten?
what we're talking about Akhenaten. So you got to let's talk about his dates. He reigned from 1353 to 13 oh no, it wasn't that. It was around the 1350s BCE anyway, right? So we've got this text, which is between 300 to 1075 BCE. So you're talking only 50 years, right? The closest it could be. And then, as we've spoken before, the similarities between Akhenaten, this knowledge of, a supreme god came out of Egypt to the surrounding areas, such as where the Israelites, did they bring this knowledge out? Did Moses? Because although it's highly debated, Moses was around the 13th century as well. So all these are in this same place, all about 50 years apart, within 50 years. So is it possible Moses had this knowledge from Akhenaten about a supreme deity and the instruction, and took it out with him, with the Israelites?
I would agree with that idea, but not directly from Akhenaten, but from the
teachings.
The teachings. And I would say the idea, once popularized, never dies. What I mean by that, Akhenaten's teachings were tried to be erased. His name, his teachings, scriptures.
His city in the desert are just abandoned.
But we still know about him. And this is a couple thousand years past since that time. But what if it's just 50 or 100 years? So I would say Akhenaten planted the seed of different religion, different ideology, whether it's theological or cultural, which should have been passed to other Egyptians or to some secret cultists who continued worshipping this one and only God, but not only Egyptians. And we have Moses, who was taught by the Egyptians.
Yes, exactly. He had an Egyptian education. Yeah.
And why, just in general, throughout the history of humanity, why some nations, societies chose to move from polytheism to monotheism?
And it happened everywhere. I mean,
Why?
I'm not sure. It is something I've pondered, but I've never looked into deeply.
Let's just look at Christianity.
Yeah.
Within the ancient Rome. There were plenty of gods there, both local Roman that were basically Greek but renamed. Yeah, it's a bit rude and maybe not correct, but to simplify that. Roman gods.
Oh yeah,
Greek
definitely it was.
Gods.
They just borrowed them and renamed them.
Then they conquered plenty of other nations who had their own gods. So there were not even hundreds, there were thousands of gods, deities, spirits, whatever people were worshipping. So how to unite them? Just choose one. Choose one. If, let's say, I'm worshipping Mars, my neighbor is from some Gallic region or he's of Celtic descent, and they worship some other spirits like the spirits of forest. So we don't have too much in common, and it's still mistrust. Okay, how can I trust the person who believes in something else, who basically has different ideology and he thinks differently? So the rulers were thinking, okay, let's give them one and only God. So if everybody worships the same God, they are under the same protection and under the same punishment.
So like conformity is saying, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Then Akhenaten tried to do the same, but the time was not the proper one for him.
Yeah.
But for Jews who did have various gods, and then even in Hebrew text, we can see, oh, there was the God of the mountain,
yeah,
which became the one to choose the Hebrews, to make them the chosen, and offered them the promised land. So were there many tribes of Israel?
Yeah.
And many of them lived on quite a vast, distant areas.
Yeah.
But to unite them, to make them work together, stop believing in their pagan gods, we just choose one to make it orthodox. Yes, again, I'm speaking in a simplistic way and maybe a bit rude, but I feel there's a truth behind it.
Yeah.
There's a logic.
Yeah, there is.
But also, if there are plenty of gods and teachings, how to simplify and make it faster? You take something from the previous ages, the system that already worked, and just redefine it a bit, change some words, or just translate it from the language that your people don't speak, but I do speak. For example, I'm Moses, born Hebrew, raised by Egyptians, having an Egyptian princess as a mother and Hebrew woman as a nanny.
Oh.
I speak both. I was taught both. Wisdoms, proverbs, teachings, beliefs. So I take something from Egypt and give it to Hebrews.
Yeah.
They never know. They never read about it, for example. I'm not sure. Maybe they did. Maybe they did not. But that seems logical to me. That's why we see the Egyptian texts, not only Egyptian, by the way. And then we see and read Tanakh. And when you read it, and like, oh, this looks Egyptian, this looks Akkadian, this looks, we can further discuss about it, by the way.
Yeah, that would be good to look at other influences that have made it into, well, what is now the Old Testament in Christianity, but the Tanakh in Judaism. So should we move on to that?
Yeah, just one more idea that you mentioned, Christianity. The cultural appropriation. It has been happening until nowadays. So, for example, Hebrews took something from ancient Egypt. Later on, Jews and then Romans took something from Hebrew teachings and established Christianity. Muslims took something from Christianity and established Islam. Then there is Baha religion. Then there are more and more modern cults that are based on the previous sects and religious branches,
Yeah,
or intermixing all of them.
that's it. There's so many branches, all from that one, the same God, but there's just lots and lots of different branches, different thickness. So even like Islam's divided into two, the Shiites and the Sunnis. Christianity is divided into,
And many more branches
and
like
of that,
spreading out of this.
yeah.
I suggest now let's speak about some more of the examples that we see in Hebrew Bible that were copied or appropriated or borrowed from some other texts.
Okay, this is a poem of the righteous sufferer, and there is similarities to the Book of Job. I'm going to read the Arcadian text. Why does my Lord afflict me? My heart is stricken within me. I kept the ritual. I observed the god's mouth. I served the gods, yet calamity befell me. And the Hebrew text, this is Job 3:11 and Job 10:1. Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire? My complaint is against God. I will speak out and declare my case to God. The Arcadian text is describing a pious sufferer complaining of undeserved affliction, whereas in essence the Hebrew text is a pious sufferer complaining to God about undeserved suffering. So very, very similar. What's your thoughts on this, Arti? We know the Arcadian is much, much older.
The tone of the speech is a bit different. For example, in the Akkadian variant, the person is just complaining about his life to the God.
Yeah.
But in the Hebrew version, he's complaining against the God. Still, the difference is in the interpretation and the purpose of the saying. But the motive, just take it, rebrand it, rebadge it, fit it to your box.
Yeah.
By box, I mean the environment and political, economical systems, beliefs at that time and place.
Yeah.
Where this person.
What message do you want to send out to your audience, to your society, your civilization?
The similarity is kind of obvious, and we can see it elsewhere. For example, the 11th tablet of Epic of Gilgamesh that touches one of our best beloved topics with you, the flood. The tablet says, there was a flood, and I, Utnapishtim, we mentioned him in our previous episode, made a reed boat. I loaded into it the seed of all living creatures. I sent forth a dove. It found no resting place and returned. I sent forth a swallow. It also returned. I sent forth a raven, and it saw the waters had subsided. Hebrew text, Genesis 8:6-12. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made. He sent forth a raven. It went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove. The dove returned to him. He waited yet 7 days. Again he sent forth the dove. The dove returned with a freshly plucked olive leaf.
So it's the same.
Yeah.
They've just
The
changed
same.
the birds. Yeah. Oh,
Change the birds. Why?
Yeah.
Maybe as if, like in our modern culture, the dove is the bird of peace.
Yeah.
And for example, in Scandinavia, in Nordic mythology, raven was the most worshipped bird, the messenger of Odin.
the main god.
who was worshipped. Yeah, the main god. And maybe it was just not appropriate for Hebrews to mention a raven as a bringer of good news. Rather, the raven was something bad and the dove was something good. That's it. We just swap.
Okay, the next. This is about the creation story. So we're looking at a Babylonian creation epic and Genesis from the Old Testament and the Bible. So the Babylon text says, when on high the heavens had not been named, and the earth beneath did not yet bear a name. Primeval, Apsu, and Tiamat, the gods were created in their midst. And the Hebrew Genesis 1 through 2. In beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. So both begin with watery chaos, yes? And then the order of creation of the earth.
Yeah, the differences that I see is only in the gods themselves.
Yes.
If you want to distance yourself from polytheism, you just don't mention the gods. Here we see the same.
Yeah.
There was only one God who was the creator. While in Enuma Elish, in the Babylonian epics, of the creation, there was like the primordial, primeval force, which was also godlike creatures. And then there were, I would say, lower gods. There were like pantheons and
Yes.
like more primeval, primordial, then less closer to human form.
So in the Babylonian text, the gods were created during the creation of the earth, where in the Hebrew text, God was already existed. He created the earth.
That's it. That's the whole difference. That's where we just substitute. As people for different ideologies, places, we just change names or just get rid of some heroes or add some new ones.
Yeah.
That's a classic. That's classic. That is fucking interesting now.
Yeah.
The next one.
I like this one.
Where we see that. The great hymn to the Aten, Akhenaten, which then is compared to the Psalm 104. So, the great hymn to the Aten. How manifold it is, what you have done. They are hidden from the face of man. O sole God who appeared as Aten, you rise as Aten in the horizon of the sky. You fill every land with your beauty. And then the Hebrew version. Psalm 104, 1 through 9. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with honor and majesty. You set the earth on its foundations. You cover it with the deep as with a garment. Let the Lord be glad in his works.
So they both celebrate the sun's role.
Mm-hmm.
And they also both describe water, animals, human labor, and in poetic sequence. This is very similar. Yeah. As you said, I think you correctly said that it's a version of it. A revision of it.
And actually, the sun or fire cult is mostly worshipped all over the earth throughout ages, in one way or another. Whether we took whether we take Zoroastrianism, Zarathustra, the fire is the central worshipping theme within the philosophy and the theology of Zoroastrianism. Then we take Greek mythology, Prometheus, who brought the fire. Why? It's also very logical. There is no life on planet Earth without the sun.
Yeah.
And the life became better when people studied how to lit fire themselves.
But in Artanism, the Arton was the sun. You know, in all the depictions of Akhenaten, his family is the sun with the hands coming down like rays, and people worshipped the Arton through the royal family. So they're a direct link. So, and I find it fascinating that the Hebrew version still retained the sun. You
The
know,
symbolism of the
the
sun.
symbolism of the sun. You know, you set the earth on its foundations, you cover it with as deep as with a garment. You know, the sun is just everywhere. To keep that same symbolism.
And if you look at the modern, even Christian images that I myself am
Look at
more familiar with, I have looked at the Catholic, Orthodox, and
like
other.
saints. You ever look at paintings of saints? You've got the sun behind them. You got
The sun,
yeah,
or the triangle with an eye,
the
like angels,
yeah,
cherubim. I'm not sure what is the English term for cherubim. You know, like these six-winged angels, archangels, like that, flying around, but still around the sun. So sun is also the center point.
yeah.
Even in modern Christianity, we still like, it's like probably in human nature, the most sacred thing on our planet is
Yeah.
what brings us life. That is the
What
sun.
it's like it's time, everything, you know. You look at all the even Stonehenge, you know, these monolithic structures. It was all about the sun, the calendars, you know.
But
Time.
that was more secular and scientific. It was not only about worshiping the sun,
Yeah.
but the life,
Yeah, there's
the
a practical.
harvesting,
Yeah.
the interchanging of seasons relied on knowing where the sun will be.
Yeah.
So you would know the change of the seasons, where to harvest, when to start planting the crops.
Precisely, yeah.
And one more thing that was appropriated throughout thousands of years,
Yeah.
the halo.
That's it. The halo of the saints and everything. And if you looked at the crown of Akhenaten, you could clearly see the Arten. Is you know, it's very similar to the halos of Christianity. Yeah.
Throughout these thousands of years,
Yeah.
we still have
Thousands.
this
Yeah.
copy and paste, copy and paste. Please, Edward, if you be
Okay.
so kind to compare Code of Hammurabi and the Exodus.
If a man steal from a temporal palace, he shall be put to death. If a man knock out the tooth of a free man, his tooth shall be knocked out. Let's move on to the next. And this is another text of Mesopotamian. Unamu. If a man commit a murder, that man must be killed. And the Hebrew. Exodus 21:23 through 25. But if there is harm, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. Eye for an eye.
Quite
Very,
expanded in the Hebrew version.
it is, it's been expanded quite a lot, but it's the common idiom today, you know, an eye for an eye sort of thing. And here you've got it, you know, if someone steals, well, you know, if someone knocks out a tooth, you'll have your tooth knocked out. If you commit murder, then you must die. So yeah, that you can see where it came from. But this is it's expanded to everything, you know. So hand for a hand, foot for a foot. Yeah.
Here, I would not say that Hebrews just took it from the
No.
previous cultures, the
I
predating
agree. This isn't
cultures.
a direct copy. This would have been, you know, this is justice in a way. It's, you know,
But
you
I
do
mean,
this, you deserve it.
it could just have been common within the area, within the region. It's like the proverbs that we have now in many languages, and we cannot find the root. Who said it first? We just don't know because it was
But
too old, too ancient.
this is a very early forms of law, sort of, and punishment. You know, yeah, if you do this, yeah, this will happen to you.
But what is similar is the way it is presented.
Yeah, definitely.
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. In couple texts, it is repeated. Whether it's someone else's quote from the older, maybe oral tradition, but it's still like a cluster of information, not
Again,
changed.
very similar regions as well.
And then another example is from the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Papyrus of Ani. This is 42 negative confessions. I like the name negative confessions, which might be somehow be the inspiration for the Ten Commandments. I would not bet on that. Just mention, just make us all think. So not to do something, but the language and linguistic patterns are just a bit different. So in the ancient papyrus of Ani, I have not stolen. I have not slain men and women. I have not spoken lies. I have not committed adultery. They all start with I have not. So this is the pattern of these negative confessions. Then we see the Hebrew text, Exodus 20:13 through 16. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. I immediately would give my analysis to it.
Go on.
So, in the Book of the Dead, it's like in the end of the life, you confess what you've done and what you have not.
Yeah.
So it might be the lesson to the next generations, but not the rules, direct order, direct command to other people. It's more like a narrative, whether the person is worthy enough to go to the better afterlife, or okay, I will say to the hell or heaven, yeah, which is not the exact way how Egyptians saw that, but
yeah,
let it be like this. For the Exodus text, it's more like a command.
This is definitely coming from God.
Mhm.
Yeah, you shall not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, the other one, but the reason that like negative confessions, they're both in the negative. I have not, you shall not. So it's yeah, definitely one's the Israel, the Hebrew one is definitely more of a command, isn't it? You don't do this. Yeah.
But it is also a bit wiser. Maybe also it's like cultural thing. For Egyptians, it might be more common to listen to others, like listen to the fable. Oh, someone did that and experience bad consequences. So I better not do the same.
Yes. So there's 42. Do you believe they had to say go through all 42 and see which ones they have or have not done?
Yeah, it's like oh, I see the list of someone who died and hadn't done these things.
Yeah. So it's almost
So this is
like
the example for me still living, not to do these 42 things, and I will have a better afterlife.
yeah. So it's almost like a checklist. Right, I can't do all these. Yeah. If you
But
do,
in Hebrew version, I'm just assuming maybe it was more common to command. And if this is the word from God, or maybe it was easier to influence the people like that. God commands. And you should not think about these things before going to the afterlife. But when you are born, to have the good life with, like, from the very beginning, you
but you can
should
see why they're
already
both
know.
implemented for the same reasons. Yes. Yeah.
Reasons are the same, but methods are different.
Yeah.
One is common for one society, one for another.
Yeah.
And it might work in these circumstances, but maybe for Hebrews, you need something more evident and harsh,
Yeah. It's more forceful sort of thing. Yeah.
more forceful to survive, to overcome, or immediately to be raised within some borders, to be stronger throughout the life. It's not only about stronger as a person, but stronger as a society.
Yeah. Good.
And maybe that's why Hebrews made it happen.
Yeah.
They are well disciplined community supporting each other.
Yeah.
That is maybe thanks to these ancient Hebrews who really made it happen through these forceful claims
And another interesting
attributed.
point.
Mhm.
Again, okay, it is different. But it's definitely came from that Egyptian wisdom.
Do we have anything else in the list to compare?
Yeah, that's it. So, what do you think we've explored today? What are our findings?
For me, it is clear that it was appropriation of the information, whether it was quoted or rebranded, rebadged, but it was not only the same narrative, but also the structure and the wording. The question that arises is, for example, from the perspective of the believers, whether it is honest enough to include these wise words as the word of God.
Yes, that's an interesting point because the thought of one God, when many of these first originated, didn't exist. That came a lot later, first with Akhenaten, as we've already said, and later on when Judaism became monotheistic.
I'm rephrasing my question.
Yeah.
If Israel's wisdom literature drew directly from pagan Egyptian sources, does that undermine claims of its divine originality?
From my initial point of view, it would be yes. These were borrowed from pagan sources, which were designed through different for different cultures, different wisdom, different reasons. And if it's borrowed and then later said it's the word of God, I would say, it's been plagiarized from pagan texts. But on the other hand, who's to say that if God does exist, that he didn't originally have influenced these ancient Egyptian texts, like through Akhenaten or through someone else?
In other words, if everything was created by the God, so his wisdom penetrated the brains of the pagans
Mm,
and moved to the more righteous people
yeah.
later on throughout generations.
Yeah,
That is from
maybe.
the point of view of the believer. From the point of view of the
Yeah,
believer.
maybe these beliefs of one God, one supreme God, happened way before that, way before Akhenaten. It's only Akhenaten we know of because he happened to be Pharaoh. He happened to be very powerful. So the ideas could have been around and God's words could have been passed down. But from a historian point of view, it's been plagiarized. It's just that, yeah.
Yes.
It didn't.
Yes. I agree. I will sum up with the believers or religious point of view. So if the words were inspired by the God, so it doesn't matter whom he inspired, or she, or the God. So maybe Amenemope was also inspired by the God. And it was the destiny to bring the wisdom through the ancient times up to nowadays. The great wisdom of the Almighty One.
And it's in the Bible of Christianity, it's in the Old Testament of the Christian Bible. So then the purpose
Even
was
by
that,
means of plagiarism. Even by means of
yeah,
plagiarism.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if it is intended, it's just passed down, changed slightly to fit the customs of that civilization and and the language, and just rehashed, which we sort of said at the very start of this. For religion, it's always just been copied and pasted to fit the times, to fit the culture, the language.
Well, I suggest we can leave this couple questions unanswered and finish on this jolly vibe and let the Almighty God bless us all.
And it'd be quite interesting for viewers from a Abrahamic perspective, religion, if you're Jewish, Muslim, or Christian. What do you think? Did if God inspired Proverbs, did he also inspire all of the ancient texts we've just stated?
Please leave your comments. We would be happy to hear your thoughts and bring our own conclusions. Like, subscribe, support. Thank you all. Thank you, Edward.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you all.